Greetings, fellow AMCers. My name is John Campea. I'm the editor of Script to Screen, and welcome to AMCentertainment.com. Today, we are joined by a couple of very important and distinguished guests. Of course, first of all, starting with contributing editor here at Script to Screen, Ms. Christina Warren. Christina, how are you doing?
Doing great.
Excellent.
Great.
And we are also joined by a contributing editor over at ThinkHero.com, Ms. Roth Cornett. Roth, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And listen, thank you guys for being with us. And listen, there's a whole bunch of really cool news things that came up this week. And we would be completely remiss if we didn't start with this. Variety magazine is reporting that Christopher Nolan, the guy who, reinvigorated the Batman franchise, is getting involved with a Superman reboot for Warner Brothers. Now, they're not saying he is directing the film. They are calling his involvement a mentor.
Or Godfather, right?
Yes, a
Godfather,
mentor or a godfather for the Superman franchise. Now, before I give my shake on this, Christina, what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, I mean, if anybody could, I guess, offer some good direction for where they could go with this franchise, it would be Christopher Nolan. As the Variety piece and as your post on Script to Screen pointed out, Batman was kind of a joke for the 10 years before, or 8 years, whatever, before the Batman Begins came out. It become a comical note to say, oh wow, the franchise started out so strong and it ended so poorly, and he completely reinvigorated it with the first film, and then with The Dark Knight, it just went into a completely different level. So I think if anyone could kind of clean up and maybe erase what they did with Superman Returns, it would be Christopher Nolan. So I think it has some hope.
Roth?
It has potential.
I actually disagree. I think it's a logically illogical choice. I think that they're two very different franchises, and I think everything's going to depend on who directs Superman. But I think that Christopher Nolan is an odd choice for this, because Superman is really not a dark story. He's not a dark character. He was sort of perfect for The Dark Knight. He was perfect for Batman. Mm-hmm. And that was a great reimagining and a great reboot. And I love it. You know what I mean? But I think Superman's a different thing, and you need a different mindset. I think you need somebody that can capture some amount of sentimentality but ground it down. I mean, you almost need like a Chris Weitz or Weitz Brothers or something like that to come in and reimagine it. And he's now doing some stuff with New Moon, and he did The Golden Compass, so he's got the effects work, and I don't know. They're talking about turning Spider-Man dark too, and I think it's a bad idea. It's bad direction.
You see, I think we as film fans sometimes make the mistake of thinking that because one director is known for doing a certain type of film, that's the only kind of film he can do. And I think we might be pigeonholing.
But that's the only kind of film he has done.
He has done so far, but he's shown. I mean, he's a storyteller, and I'll tell you why I think this is brilliant. I'm going to go on the side that I think this is brilliant, and here's the main reason why. No, he is not directing this film. And I'll be honest with you, I even question how much involvement he's really going to have. I actually personally see this as a situation much like, remember the whole hoopla about Peter Jackson on Halo?
Oh, yeah.
And they got everybody excited that Peter Jackson on Halo. Well, wait a second. Look at what they're saying. Even if Halo did happen, Peter Jackson wasn't doing anything on the movie. Not a thing. He just brought in his guy as a director. And
so it's a branding thing.
Yeah, I think this is more of a branding thing. But here's the part where I think it could be really, really good. Let's say he is going to be a little bit involved, quote-unquote, mentoring the process. Where I get excited as a film fan on this is, does this sow the seeds of Warner Brothers doing what Marvel is doing with their universe, which is creating one continuity? Are they moving towards where Batman's world in The Dark Knight and Superman's world are going to be the same world, and we could be creating the potential for some crossover in the future? I think that is the best move Marvel has done.
Like a Justice League?
Well, even if they don't go to the extent of a Justice League, even having them inhabit the same world, I think is a big step forward.
Idea. I think
really?
That they should yes. I think they inhabit very different worlds. I think that they represent very different things to us in terms of their mythology. I think that we don't always need to be in a dark, gritty Gotham. I like that Superman is American Pie. You know what I mean?
He has hope.
That. Yeah, and Spider-Man is lighter too. And
but doesn't that add to the genius of this? I mean, it's just because, Superman doesn't inhabit a different world. I think the genius about the dichotomy of Superman and Batman is the fact that in the comics they do inhabit the same world, and their differences are just highlighted that way. That the way each of them, It's not that each of them lives in a different world. They live in the same world, but each of them has a very different view of that world and a very different way in which they approach it. And I think, personally, that's what makes the characters so interesting and kind of why I think it would be fantastic to see them together. So let's just go with this. For now, we're saying that Christina and myself think this is great. Roth, you're a little on the iffy side.
You know, it could be. I think Chris Nolan is brilliant, and I think it could totally surprise me. But right now, I'm like very thumbs down. I think they're very different flavors, and I sort of like them that way.
But let's keep in mind also that much like the Peter Jackson thing, Christopher Nolan is not directing this film.
Yeah,
He's
I don't
on
know
board,
who is.
probably more. No, they haven't announced it. He's probably more as a consultant. But let's move on from there. This is an interesting piece of news that I got today. One of the things that has become like a summer movie tradition has been that every year there is a Pixar film, generally the best films of the year. A Pixar film comes out in the summer. And Disney kind of made a little bit of a surprising announcement. In 2010, we've got Toy Story 3 coming, of course. Mm-hmm. But in the summer of 2011, we were supposed to get Cars 2. They've just announced that they have pushed Cars 2 all the way back to December. So we are not going to have a Pixar film in the summer this year. Roth, let's start with you. Is this a good idea to move it back? Is this a bad idea? And what do you think motivated it?
I mean, I think I'm going to have to agree with what you think motivated, which is they don't want to go against, certainly they don't want to go against Transformers 3. And it's not the same audience, but it's a similar audience. I also think that a December release kind of makes more sense because that's more of the time of the year for family movies, and families will be going to movies together. I didn't actually see the first Cars, so I don't have too much of an anticipation about it, but I think that a December release seems to make more sense for this movie as a family film.
Christina?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because until, I guess, it was Ratatouille was one of the, well, Finding Nemo was released during the summer, but Pixar historically has kind of gone back and forth, but they used to always release in November. You know, the first Toy Story came out in November, and A Bug's Life came out in November. Toy Story 2 came out Thanksgiving. The Incredibles. So this has, Monsters, Inc., so this has precedence, but I think that the family thing is a good observation. I mean, I don't have kids. I don't want kids, but a lot of my friends who are parents, their young kids love the Cars films, love them, and little boys especially. And I can totally see this being a really big kind of family film. I think that the longevity of the franchise has surprised me anyway, to see how much it still is popular and it's kind of carried on. So I think that they probably don't want to go against Transformers, which makes sense. But they also, I think it makes sense, like Roth is saying, you know, from a family film point of view, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. The summer, especially the summer of 2011, is looking stacked.
Yeah.
Stacked with huge films. But I'm going to give you one word, and this is just my opinion here. I'm going to give you a one-word explanation about why Disney and Pixar have moved this film to December. And that word is Avatar. Let's look at this. One of the discussions I've been having with some friends is like, look, taking nothing away from the incredibly mind-blowing, huge numbers that Avatar has done at the box office. One of the things that I've brought up in discussion a lot is, okay, that is, take nothing away from that whatsoever. The question, though, is, in the past 6 weeks, really, what has opened against it? Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, and that's it. And I think personally, and I'm basing this on nothing, this is completely conjecture on my part. I think Pixar has looked at that and said, you know what? If we can put Cars in the summer and it'll make money, or we can move this thing to a December near the end of the year thing, let it stretch out into January, because really, I mean, if we open it in the summer when we said we're going to, like Christina was saying, it's Transformers is going to come along. I think that is one of the probably the main, and Harry Potter, tons of things. And that's going to kill its, quote unquote, kill its buzz. I think they're moving to right there because they know, number one, you can open an animated film, particularly a Pixar film, any time of the year to do well.
Sure.
But you put it there, it's going to have longer legs, it's going to stretch out more, and I think ultimately it's going to make a lot more money for them. So that's my
and the
my
Chipmunks. The Chipmunks, that's a good counter too.
Oh,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
That means
it
what,
might
300
make more
million?
money. It's not going to do Avatar money. I mean,
No, absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
But they could probably do more than they could do in a summer release.
Yeah, I agree.